Jen, I think a lot of people want love, but they don't always feel safe in it. Why do relationships trigger us so deeply?
Mm. Such a good question because relationships are the most important relationship we're ever going to have. It's what we are biologically wired to go towards. And everything in our brain is wrapped around those early caregivers, our parents, or maybe they were our grandparents or our aunts or uncles, whatever it was, whoever took care of you. That person right now that you want to kiss at nighttime, that you want to snuggle with, they're instigating the exact same neurons in your brain as all the way back then. So we need to make this work literally for our survival.
One thing that I found fascinating recently is how a tiny event, like something that you might have been a year and a half old and you were crying at the crib and your mom was going to pick you up, but somebody knocked on the door and she stopped doing that and she went and get the door. Immediately your brain created a story that love was inconsistent. Boom. Insecure attachment created almost, to that degree. And we never are conscious about it until, we get into relationship and we get triggered at the deepest level, since you are somebody who have experienced that yourself, but also have helped others. What is insecure attachment really afraid of?
Yeah, so let's break down what you kind of said before. You're a baby and you're crying in your crib and your mom's not coming to pick you up. So what's happening in that moment? It's not that your mind is creating a story, because at that age, your mind isn't capable of creating a story. What's happening is physiologically, your nervous system, like your body, thinks it's going to die. Because if you are crying out, it's for a reason. As a baby, it's maybe because you're hungry or because you're scared or because your diaper is wet, which all of these have to do with our physical sensations, our safety. And so what's happening when mom doesn't come in, if this is happening consistently over time and other things are also happening, like you're not getting safety afterwards, there's no repair after mom comes in, things like this, your body teaches you, oh, this is not safe to have. This is not okay for me to have. Now, you're 1.5 down here, jump forward to like a 41-year-old woman, just hypothetically speaking, and all of a sudden somebody's ignoring you, or somebody gives you the wrong look, or somebody kind of changes from smiling to not smiling. And your entire nervous system says, I'm not safe. I'm going to die. And that's what's actually happening inside of our nervous system when our husbands come home and they don't kiss us, hi, darling, or hi, sweetheart, or they don't clean after themselves. And so we think we're being disrespected or we're not being listened to. And all of this compounds in a way to which case we get triggered. We shut down. We don't know how to communicate. We just completely turn into this tiny little thing. Like we just want to be a baby and we want to scream and cry.
Yeah. I experienced part of it in my marriage, obviously, and I experienced it, other relationships and
Shames.
seeing and then seeing another one. And I'm like, logically, none of that makes sense how we react. And yet is react and that's when you see either me. I have a few friends who are so dating and I help them out a lot. You see when somebody panics and they either pull away or cling or overthink, what do you think their nervous system is trying to protect them from? Because at this, even though they're not aware of it, they just feel they need to just, I guess, find safety somewhere, but the place where they think that they might find safety, that's where they're running away from.
Exactly. So there's a thing that's happening. First off, you mentioned it's not logical. And the thing is, you're not wrong. It's not logical. We have two different things going on in our bodies. We have our conscious and we have our subconscious, or as we might be able to say, our logic and like our emotions, so to speak, right? Like, oh, why do I cry and I don't want to cry? Because that's your subconscious. You can't control that. Right now, I can't control moving my hands. I am very big and boisterous and energetic. So anytime I talk, I'm going to move my hands. I'm not actively telling my hands, okay, right hand and left hand, I want you to move in a big circle when I talk. It's happening subconsciously. It's just happening. That's what we call the subconscious, which is responsible for 95% of everything it is that we do. From blinking to breathing, from you touching your hand, your face right there, like you don't even smiling. Like we could just keep going on and on and on
Yeah.
about this because you're doing it subconsciously. You're not choosing to do this. It's just I said something that made you interested and you smiled. That's a subconscious action. Our conscious level, our logic, is only responsible for 5%. So that's right now, like if everyone who's listening, and I say to you right now, lift up your right hand. You have to actively lift up your right hand. Well done. Good job listening. See, that's good. And then like some people out there are going to be like, I don't want to lift up my right hand. Great. You logically and consciously decided not to lift up your hand. You didn't want to in that moment. So you're making choices. And that's the difference that's going on here. We're talking about trying to live in our conscious level and our logic our entire lives, but that's only 5%. So if ever out of every, the way I like to explain this, if out of every 100 minutes, you only get to choose what you're doing in 5 of those minutes, what are you going to do? So we have to work on our subconscious level, our wiring, our neurons, all of this stuff that from back from childhood in order to get there. Which brings me to what you're asking later on. Why do we cling? Why do we shut down? Why do we splurt, like blurt things out of our mouth when we don't want to? And we call our husband an asshole and we're like, oops, let me put that toothpaste back in the tooth tub, please. I don't like that. I just said that. I'm responsible for my feistiness sometimes. Yes. When that happens, it's because we are just exhibiting those old past behaviors that kept us safe when we were a child. So maybe you were a child and by the time you're 5 years old, you would ask your mom for something, except your mom would be like, I don't have time for you. Or your mom would be like, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. In that moment, you're learning, I can't trust somebody else with my feelings. So now when your wife comes in and she asks you for something, you shut down because you're like, I can't ask for my needs. Someone else can't. I can't have an expectation put on me to meet someone else's needs because when people need their needs met from other people, I am unsafe. So now I'm going to shut down. I'm going to go into my little man cave. I'm going to go work extra hard, or I'm going to go to the gym more. I'm going to start going for more runs. We can mask it by saying we're getting healthier, we're doing more work, but it's shut down. It's just what's happening. And on the flip side, we have the clingy people, right? The anxious attachment, the salsa of uncertainty, as I like to call it, when I talk about my dances and my attachment styles and all that stuff, because what's happening is this uncertainty of life where you were taught, oh, if I work hard enough, then mom likes me. If I get a good grade, if I come home with an A, then dad's not going to yell at me. If I know how to, clean the kitchen, then when mom gets home, she's not going to hit me. And I know that one was hard to hear, but it's because this is what's happening. And so we learn how to be perfect, how to people please, how to earn our worth. And we cling and we get needy and we think if you could just love me, then we could be better. But what's happening in both of these, the avoidant and the anxious, is they're both coming from an insecure space inside of their subconscious that says, I need you to do a certain thing in order for me to stay safe. When really, if we heal and become securely attached, we've learned that our safety comes from within.
I love everything that you said. And I'm going to put a quick note here for the audience because I feel that people tend to do this a lot. Yes, your parents were not perfect. They were doing the best they could with the information and the upbringing and the background that they had, right? Because I hear people like, well, I'm like this because my parents did this. It's like, dude, they were doing the best. I mean,
I'm never here to blame a parent, ever. I'm a parent. I have a 15-year-old son. I am not here to blame me. I'm not here to blame my mom. And also, because we can hold two truths at the same time, many parents did not do enough that we needed. They weren't attuned to what we needed as children.
100%, and that is I keep pushing this to my friends about having nuance. Can you hold more than one truth at the same time, right? It's just, yes, sure, your childhood wasn't perfect, and they were doing the best they could, right? Their childhood was actually worse, and they're trying to get even better and better, right? It's like nobody's going to get it right, but there are so many different things I want to talk about. But one thing is, obviously, we have the anxious and the avoidant attachment. And because I have a couple of friends who are like this, females actually, because avoidance tend to be, generally speaking, more men than women. I think it's just based on how we are taught that men cannot show any emotions and anything like that. And then we just tend to avoid.
Can I touch on that real quick? Would that be okay?
100%, yeah.
Because you bring up something that like one day I want to do research on, because we don't actually have very evidence-based, right? That's like my whole thing. I'm an attachment researcher, going back to school for it, blah, blah, blah. So we don't have the actual research as to why men tend to be more avoidant and women tend to be more anxious. But my personal professional opinion is it is societal based. It's exactly what you're saying right there. It is based on the fact that we teach men you shouldn't have emotions. So think about how that feels. If you have an emotion, if you're crying, you're less of a man. If you are, getting upset, then you're not good enough. So men learn how to hold down. Women are taught you have to people please. You have to be good for your parents. You have to be the ones that take care of the rest of the children. These are all anxious attachment type patterns that get brought up into us. So anyways, that's what that is. So
Yeah, which I appreciate you mentioning that, because I have two friends who are girls who both are avoidant, right? One is dismissive avoidant, and the other one, I think I call it fearful avoidant, which I think is the disorganized avoidant. I think it's the same thing, maybe. I
I
don't
could
know.
get into that if you want to, because there's a very big
Yes.
difference between what you're kind of saying. So I'll just jump right in, or do you want to
Yeah.
finish your story?
Well, what I want to say, and we jump right into the story, is because I've seen that, I feel very sad for them, because I can sense that part of them really want to connect. And then one, when it comes to the dismissing avoidant, she's afraid of losing her freedom. The one who's, I call it fearful avoidant, she's afraid of being swallowed by her own emotions and be open and vulnerable. And it just, to me, it's like, man, as somebody who feels deeply, loves deeply, and all of that, I cannot imagine the struggle inside, how you just trying to get close, but the fear just pulling you back, and you're just, and you have this tug war inside of yourself, which is, you know, intense and sad as well.
Daniel, can I ask you like a really like vulnerable question?
100%.
Do you think you're anxiously attached?
I used to. I
I
used
could
to.
see it. Do you want
I
to know
used
what?
to.
Do you want to know why? I know I'm a
Yeah,
professional
yeah.
at this, and so I could like pick it up in
Yeah.
2 seconds. But do you want to
Yeah.
hear what I heard?
Yes.
Your preoccupation with their feelings. Such a classic anxious attachment thing is when you said, I feel sad for them not being able to like figure this out. There's this interesting thing that happens with anxiously, and I say this with like pure love, because I
Mhm.
although
Yeah.
I do lean more avoidant, I love a good anxiously attached man, right? Of course I do. I'm an avoidant woman. It's what happens. When this is happening inside of us, it's why some people call this anxious preoccupied inside of the researching world, because we are so preoccupied with what someone else is going through. Because in life, we had to be so hyper vigilant about everyone else around us that we forget to look at ourselves. And so you see this in like the Facebook groups or the Reddit groups and all these things where it's anxious people coming in, anxious, not just anxious, because I like to use, there's a very big difference between anxiously attached and anxious. I'm hella anxious. I'm not very anxiously attached. So anxiously attached people come in and they're so like, well, why do they do this? And why can't he be like this? And why is he doing this? And why is she doing this? And I'm so sad for her over here. And this makes me so angry that he would do this. And that's that preoccupation that's coming up. Whereas avoidant people, they tend to be a little bit more like, yeah, whatever they're doing, they're doing. They're so kind of not into that kind of thing. So I could see it as you're talking. But what I love about this is where we start. When we learn our attachment style, or as I call them, our adapted attachment stances, because it's not really like a personality style. It's not something that we're born with. It's just a stance. It's just a maladapted coping mechanism that we can fix. That's all it is. And when we learn what that is, we can start to establish what our different attachment patterns are. And through understanding our attachment patterns, we can start to dig deep into figuring what those are out. So we can start to actually rewire them to live happier, healthier, more secure relationships.
Yeah, and funny that you picked that up, because yeah, I used to be anxious attached. My ex-wife was anxious attached. Now she was always anxious attached. I once I get the reassurance, once I know that we are together, then it's just pure secure attachment. However, one thing I realized, even though I haven't dated since I got divorced, one thing that I come to realize how I've been able to heal that is being able to hold longing and desire and uncertainty at the same time, and patience. Like, can I hold this without going into, firefly, without going into the just collapsing, or losing myself in the anxiety or the unknown and the uncertainty and the stress associated with that. But I think that part of me, why I feel sad for these attachment styles, or at least the avoidance ones, is because they're highly misunderstood, and you need somebody who's not only secure but very aware and capable to understand the other person, and to be there for the other person to slowly start healing. Because even you can do part of the healing yourself, obviously, but another part has to be with somebody else, because your body needs that. In my mind, probably, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but you need that exposure, like slowly. Okay, this is not safe, and you get close and you pull back, and you get close and you pull, and it's until you reteach your body you know what, this person is safe.
Yeah. Yes and no. I kind of hear what you're saying, but I do want to be careful because there's this really big rhetoric out there, especially there's a book out there called Attached. Do you know what this book is?
Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I
it's
actually
it's all over
really
there.
dislike that. I really dislike that book.
Oh, really interesting.
Yeah, and I would tell him mirror that to his face if he ever wants to talk. And he knows it too. He totally agrees. But here's why. Because in that book, oftentimes, first off, it barely brings up disorganized attachment, or as you're talking about, fearful avoidant. I like to call it disorganized attachment. One, because that's tends to be what the person who created, who developed, who understood disorganized attachment, Mary Main, that's what she calls it. And also fearful avoidant gets confused that people think it's a type of avoidant attachment style. That's not disorganized at all. But let's pin that, and I will absolutely talk about it in just a second. But what Amir's talking about in Attached is he talks about avoidant, he talks about anxious, and he says, in order to basically heal your attachment style, just go ahead and find yourself a secure partner, and then that will help heal you. Except that's not how it works. Because you, as an anxiously attached person, or her as an anxiously attached person, is never going to find a secure person attractive. It's just not going to happen. You will see a secure person, and you will find them boring. You will think to yourself, I'm not attracted to them. I don't really have chemistry with them. I don't know. He seems really good on paper, but I'm not really into it. Well, girl, you're not into it because your body is so familiar with chaos and having to earn your worth and learning how to win him over that when all of a sudden a man is texting you consistently every day, you get the ick. And that's why, as much as we do need to heal in relationship, that's true. We actually, and this is something I do in my coaching practice, I learned to have those relationships where we learn secure relationships outside of our romantic relationships first. The best way to start healing our attachment style is by getting friendships, family, even a coaching relationship or a therapist relationship, something where you can actively say to someone, you know what, you really, right now, Daniel, I'd be like, Daniel, you really pissed me off. And then, by the way, if that brought anything up in your body, we could talk about that. But it's just
Zero.
I like when people are like, oh, no, that triggered me. And I was like, great, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Because then what you get to say is, thank you for telling me. Let's talk about it. And all of a sudden now I'm like, wait, hold on. You want to have a conversation with me? And that's how you and I start to form this. But doing that inside of a romantic relationship is nearly next to impossible because you will never actually find that person attractive. So if an avoidant person wants to heal, they have to do the internal work first. And they have to find those small, secure relationships outside of a romantic relationship first. Is that kind of making sense how I'm saying that?
Yes, it does. Well, number one, when it comes to triggers, it's funny because it's very hard to trigger because I've worked on my triggers. To me, triggers are information, and then you have to explore why you're getting triggered. And people can say anything to me, right? I won't get triggered. I would get triggered if I want to do something and that brings me anxiety or fear. Yeah, of course. But almost nothing on the outside world can kind of trigger me because now I'm like, okay, it just doesn't.
That's fantastic.
But it's funny.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I tell that to people, and sometimes I trigger people on purpose and see if they can discover. But yeah. But
that's what I do a lot. So I try to get people's goat sometimes as I'm talking, so I can see what they're like. And it's to show them that your body you don't choose. Even triggers, we don't choose to be triggered. So there's a high chance that, yes, you are being triggered. For example, whenever I'm on a podcast, my body's a little bit on edge right now. If I were to check in with my somatic sensations, I'd see my stomach is a little bit in knots. I would check, my back hurts a little bit because it's been a long day. I probably need to go for a walk after this.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, my head hurts a little bit. Maybe that's just because I'm nervous. And so I'm looking at that. But triggers themselves, if you were to say something or you disagree with me, maybe my body does this immediate, oh my God, I got disagreed with. And then through healing, as you've done beautifully, which I love to hear, you're able to kind of naturally work through that to say, I'm safe. This isn't something that's a lion is not chasing me. I'm not going to be in trouble here. I am safe. I am secure. And I can control the situation. When we can get our bodies to that level, you're right. Any trigger that comes towards us, we're able to maintain. And that's the goal in life, is being able to be so secure that nothing rattles you. I have this quote. It's my favorite quote in the whole wide world. It's, the bird is not afraid of the branch breaking because she trusts in her own wings.
Self-trust is one of the harder things for people to develop.
It is because we weren't taught it when we were children, because self-trust starts with a co-collaborative trust of our caregivers. And when we don't have that, we start to lose our self-trust. And so then we go into life expecting somebody else to heal for us or to have someone else heal our relationships. If they could just get their shit together, our relationship would be great. Such an insecurely attached thought process.
I know, and for those who might mm, think, well, what is self trust? It's like you might not know any. I mean, what is ahead of you, but you trust yourself that whatever comes ahead, I mean, comes to you, you're gonna be able to figure it out and survive,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, and I think that once you develop some self trust, your amount of suffering just lowers by a lot.
Mhm.
But I wanted to share with you a story about a friend that's where kind of sort of trigger all this me and my fascination with this attachment theory. So a couple of years ago, I have this friend who lives in Europe. Now we've been friends for like 15 years or so, and we catch up every like 6 months or something. And she was telling me that she used to go to this pottery class on Saturday mornings, right? And they would go to brunch afterwards, the entire group. One time, this guy started joining that class, and she said that I don't know, she felt like resonance. She felt like something that just clicked differently than any other guy that she has dated in the past. At this point, she felt like really the emotions just coming out. And she's like, oh, we had great conversations all the time. And after a month or so, he asked her out. She told him, like, well, no, I just came out of a relationship. I'm kind of like in the process of doing that. And I called her out. It's like, you've been single for like 9 months. What's happening there? And she's like, yeah, I freaked out. I didn't know what to do. I've never felt with a guy like this in terms of how much it's not triggers, but it brings all of those wounds and things like that that I feel that I want to connect. And what she found herself doing now, I didn't have the knowledge or the language back then when she was telling me this story, was that she, anytime that she tried to flirt with him or get close to him, she would feel almost like she was drowning in her own emotion. That she was going to be overwhelmed by it. It's like she felt so deeply and so vulnerable that even looking at him or saying hi to him felt like everyone will know how I feel about him, and she would have to pull away or pull back and sort of get really, regulate and then come back. And it seems to me, after we cut up, a couple of months ago or 5 months ago or something, it seems to me that she was giving a lot of mixed signals. Eventually, the guy had a girlfriend. I mean, got a new girlfriend, and he stopped going to the class. This happened probably now at this point a year and a half ago. When I randomly asked her last year, at the end of the last year, what happened, she felt like very emotional. She even started crying, saying, "I still think about this guy every day." Right? It's like I've dated other guy, nothing like him, and I felt like he was the one who got away or whatever. And 2 years ago, I didn't understand what was happening, but then after doing a lot of research based on my own podcast and doing other things, I realized, oh, you were having that either. In my head was the fearful avoidant. You feel so deeply, so strongly that you get overwhelmed by your own emotions, and you want to be drowned by them, and you feel you need to pull away, but the other person doesn't know that. So it feels, okay, this is too much hot and cold. I just don't want to deal with that. And that's why I felt like very, very sad, because I care about my friends. I'm like, man, that must suck.
Yeah, it does suck. A lot of things suck. So that's what's really hard. So yeah, let's dive into disorganized attachment. So disorganized attachment, or as I call it, the pendulum swing dance. Because what's literally happening in this moment is you are swinging between anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. So the way, let's nerd out for like a hot minute for anyone that likes to, like this stuff. So the way that this works was way back in the day. You have John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth. These are the two psychologists that developed attachment styles when they're looking at, okay, how do we attach to our parents and our caregivers? So they found anxious and avoidant attachment styles. Later on down the road, this other psychologist comes in, Mary Main, and she starts looking at these videotapes that Bowlby and Ainsworth had taken of all these children and their mothers leaving and coming back. How did the children react? And Mary Main started noticing, wait a second, there's this third kind of intersection of children that seem to be yearning for their mother's love, but is also pushing the mother away as soon as the mother comes back. What is this? And that's where Mary Main came up with this idea of disorganized attachment. And what this means is a push-pull dynamic. You literally are swinging between gimme, 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 I need you, I need you, I need you, and then pulling away and saying, ew, no, go away, I don't like this. What are you doing? This is gross. That sounds a lot of like what your friend was going through in that moment. And she's going to go through that consistently unless she can heal through whatever trauma it was that she went through in childhood. Because I will say this, there is a high chance that if somebody has a disorganized attachment style, they went through what we consider the big T trauma, the big ones: physical abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, any of these. Those are the big things that are happening. Maybe it's your parent was an alcoholic. Maybe one of your parents went to jail. There's also this concept called the ACE score, which is adverse childhood experiences, that I often take my clients through just to see if, like, do we think you're anxiously attached or avoidantly attached? Oh, you mean your dad used to hit you? You most likely have disorganized attached, sweetheart. I'm really sorry, but this is part of CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. All of this works together. All of that to say is, it makes total sense. Because if you were a kid and the very person who was supposed to keep you safe, who was supposed to love you unconditionally, hurt you, then it's no wonder you don't trust love. That's what happens. You're going to go towards someone and feel so much towards them that all of a sudden it's going to freak you the fuck out, because the last time you loved somebody that much, when you were a child, they hurt you. So to your friend, I would say to her, I'm actually really proud of her. I'm proud of her for not jumping into a relationship where her body was already feeling like waves and chaos, because those are the worst relationships to jump into. This feeling she had inside of her body where she still thinks about him, that's just a limerence feeling that's most likely coming from a place of familiarity. And that means that this man would not have been the right choice for her, because you do not want to go into a relationship where you already feel off kilter. So good for her for listening to her instincts, and good for her for like really trying to figure that out. And her next step would be, how does she start learning to become attracted to men who don't make her feel that way?
I think that this is the interesting part. And when it comes to her, right? I've met, quite a few of her, past boyfriends and all of that. And to me, I told her even at some point, like, whatever relationship you're in is not going to last for, because I didn't sense emotional involvement from her fully. Right? It's almost like it was like a safe, it's fun. I mean, it's just like I have someone, but it doesn't require much of my emotional involvement in here, or investment. And and I could be wrong because I don't know, like I wasn't there to see the interaction. Obviously, I'm just hearing from her point of view that this guy, I guess, it seems to me that he was a very grounded person, just like neutral grounded person, and his energy was what she kind of desire. But that desire came at a cost that, well, you know, probably deep into your subconscious mind, that you would have to finally open yourself emotionally, be very vulnerable. I tend to hang out with people who are too smart for their own good, including myself, that we analyze everything and then we don't feel anything, right?
Yeah.
And I a few years ago, I was like, I'm just gonna get out of my head and get more into my body. But she analyzes everything, right? And back then, she didn't even understand what was happening. But when I was talking to her last year, I felt like it seemed to me that this was the first time that you felt the need to really open yourself, and it was terrifying. And that's why you just kept, pulling away, because I think that she felt that sometimes she would feel highly anxious, feel like she was drowning in her own sensations and feelings and emotions. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. Back then, it's like, I don't know what that is, but you might go to seek therapy. Now, I think I understand better.
Yeah, and that's why I just want to be clear again. That drowning sensation, that's not a secure sensation. That's not love. That doesn't mean that he was good for her. That doesn't mean, if she had pushed through that, then she could have figured it out. Like, again, I think there was something about this man that was causing her to have some sort of familiar feeling of something going on from back in the day. Now, I'd have to have her in front of me. I'd work through it. We would go through
Yeah.
a somatic experience, a compassion inquiry that I'm trained in, where we would take her back and we would try to figure out, what are some different things. But the reason why I want to bring this up, because I think so often, especially women, we feel like, we just have to push through. We just have to get more vulnerable. But we have a certain amount of window of tolerance in our nervous system. If we push past that, we risk exploding. We risk actually making things worse. That's why we want to be looking for partners that don't make us feel like we're drowning. But then we're so, hell bent on this Hollywood concept of like, but love should be like butterflies. I always say, ladies, if you feel butterflies, run the other way, because this is not for you. This guy is not for you. He is instigating something in your body, your old attachment patterns. This is not a good thing, especially because she's still thinking about him later. I think that there would be, in my professional opinion, something going on inside of her that he reminded her of something. But again, like, and so maybe in the past she would have jumped head first and then gotten really hurt. So again, I just really love it when people can listen to their bodies, when they can kind of, even if you're like, yeah, maybe I could have pushed through, but you didn't. And I'm really proud of you. And that's really good. So then we try again next time. And if she was in front of me, I would ask her, ultimately, what do you want? That's what I ask all my clients. They come in, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Like, I should be learning how to be more touchy-feely, or he stopped dating me because I wouldn't kiss him in public. And I'm like, girl, what do you want? Let's stop worrying about what everyone else wants. Let's stop worrying about what our friends think we should be having in life. Do you even want a relationship? Because you know what? If you don't, good, fuck it. Like, you don't need one as a woman. You don't need one as a man. You don't need one as anyone. You could also have one relationship. You could have 5 relationships. I don't care. What do you want? That's the end all be all of any question.
Yeah, I mean, I always ask people in general what they want, whether it's in a relationship or life or whatever. It's just like that's something that we rarely ask ourselves. But based on that point, because I think that and this is me just assuming stuff, right? Based on now replaying the conversation, is that she felt like deeply seen by him, like like some people, which brings me to a point, if that was the case or not. But why does being seen by the right person, and I'm not saying that was the right person for her, but I've seen in other interaction with other people, sometimes feel more terrifying than being rejected by the wrong one?
Yeah. Because if we're seen by someone, truly seen, then we could get rejected for who we truly are. But if we put on a mask, if we put on some sort of, facade and go out there and then they reject us, it's fine. We didn't give them our full selves. But when someone can see past that, it both feels great and amazing, and it also feels scary as hell. And we don't want to let that in. We barely see ourselves. So if we have someone else see us, that can be scary because, oh my God, they see us for who we are. All these things I've been trying to hide all the time. This isn't really good. So the only way that we can get out there, the only way that we can start feeling okay with people truly seeing who we are 100% is by feeling and seeing ourselves and being okay with that. Is there anything inside of us that we don't like? Then we have to clean that up first. In fact, like right now, I would say there's nothing in my life anymore that I'm embarrassed about by my life. If anything in my past came out, if anything right now, if you said to me, Jen, you're talking too fast, you're too loud, you're too much, I'd be like, hell yeah. Because these things used to like scare me even just a couple years ago. And now through the work that I've done in rewiring my mind and figuring out my somatic system and all this stuff, I realized these are the things that make me. But I couldn't have put myself out there before. We talked about the podcast earlier today, Daniel. There was no way I could have had a podcast even 3 years ago. Because, like, what if somebody said something bad about my voice? My voice is very squeaky. It's very high. And it gets a little crackly. And I get loud. And at first, people would be like, you're, like, too loud. You're too squeaky for, like, having a job like this. And so I believed that. But now I'm like, fuck it. Like, this is who I am. And the more I'm myself, the more I'm attracting people who love that about me. I'm sure you see that in yourself with your own podcast. And now all of a sudden someone sees me and I'm like, damn straight they do.
Yeah, I can relate somewhat to that, because for many years I've always been this kind of person that have a certain level of depth, that I mean, depth is just my playground. It to me comes very easily. I try to bring people right from the get go to a deeper conversation, and it's not about the traumas on your childhood, no, but any topic I like to experience. I want to experience it and discuss it at a deeper level that really fulfills me. But when you're a kid, you cannot connect with other kids at all, right? You feel like, especially if you have high level of curiosity and you ask too many questions that people might not know the answer, or might feel like, okay, you're too boring, you're too intense, you're too much. I used to be ashamed of that, right? I was like, okay, maybe I should just not put a facade, but just put a bunch of filters and be a lesser version of me, maybe a 20 or 30%, and not my full self, just because I want to connect with people, right? So if I make people feel uncomfortable, or if I make people feel intimidated, or if I feel people, whatever, right? I don't want to cause that. And a few years ago, I just realized, hey, look, I'm just gonna embrace more this. And fun enough, the one of my female friends, the one who is actually a dismissive avoidant, who she's afraid of freedom, she was the first person who encouraged me to lean more into that, because she also
Mm.
likes depth. And I was like, hey, so some people enjoy that. And after I start changing that behavior, start just being more myself, and be somebody who has like insights and reflection, because I'm always thinking, I'm always trying to analyze people to understand at a deeper level why they behave the way that they do. Now I found myself, I've found people that enjoy that as well. And that's why I'm so obsessed with the neuroscience and the reticular activating system, and how it shapes your reality. That maybe those people were always there, but until I accepted that I could also connect, I would have never been able to see them. And yes, it's terrifying at first, because those are the what we feel the unlovable parts of ourselves, which at the same time makes us human. And sometimes we feel that we have to put this persona that is perfect, that we don't have any flaws, because what if we have one flaw and that guy or that girl doesn't like us back, and then
Yeah.
it reinforces the story that I'm unlovable.
Yeah, we have all of these stories. I call these attachment wounds. We have them. This is the number one thing I work on inside of my Speak Honest Academy with my women is the attachment wounds. These are all the stories that come up in our heads. I'm unlovable. I'm too much. I'm intense. I'm a burden. I am unsafe. I am not enough. All of these, right, that are coming up. All of these stories, all of these wounds are so ingrained into our system. They live in our subconscious. So we have our beliefs, which is, let's say, I'm not enough. And then we have our thoughts, our emotions, and then eventually our actions. And so when we're doing this, what happens is our actions are dictated based on our beliefs. And it's a lot harder than people just say, oh, change your beliefs and, change your actions. Technically, that is the way it works. But also, how do you change your beliefs, right? Like, it's really hard. There's a pendulation between, like thinking it and feeling it, right? There's more complex terms than that, but I can't think of them right now. Intellectualizing, that's what I'm thinking, like intellectualizing and somatics, is there's this pendulation process between them. But if we believe, let's say I believe I'm too much. That was always what I was told as a kid, right? Like, I'm too much, I'm too intense, I'm too loud, blah, blah, blah. And so let's say I believe that. That means if I come into a room and I'm like, oh my God, hey, everybody, and then like everyone just turns around and looks at me like, and it's crickets. There's different ways I could think of this. There could be like, wow, these people aren't fun. It could be like, oh, these people aren't my people. I could just think that. I could think like, oh God, what just happened? Like, did something bad happen? Oh, that was maybe bad timing. Or, and this was always happening in my body, could think, wow, I'm an idiot. I'm too much. These people are going to hate me. And I'm never going to be invited back again. Those are the thoughts in my head. The emotions that come up with me then are fear, sadness, disappointment. And so what's my action going to be? It's probably going to be turning right around and leaving because like now I'm embarrassed as hell. Maybe it's going to be over functioning in this party now and trying to run around and say hi to everybody and do too much, maybe help out the host and burn out. That's my actions. And so we so often focus on the actions over here, and we're thinking to ourselves, why can't we just change this? But it stems all the way back to this belief. We have to start finding evidence in our system that showcases that we are not too much. Except our bodies, as you would know, it doesn't work towards the negative, right? We have the white bear theory, which is like, if I tell you right now, don't think of a white bear. Don't think of a white bear, Daniel, right? It's like, okay, everyone's thinking of a white bear. You're going to get one or two like really stubborn people that is like, I thought of a pink bear. And I'm like, you know what? We need to study you because I love it when people do this. But with that, we have to come up with something positive based. Positive based would be like, I'm just enough, or I'm trying, or I'm safe to be too much, or I'm actually valued for my energy. Because now I could walk into a room, get really big and loud and exhaustive and all this stuff, and people might come up to me and be like, Jen, that's too much. Well, one person comes up to me and says, I really needed your energy today. Thank you. And that's everything to me, because in my heart of hearts, I'm not doing this now for anyone else. See, that's how we move out of that anxious attachment. And we realize we're not acting or performing or living for other people. Like, I'm not talking to you and hoping you accept me, Daniel, right? Like, I am just being me now, sharing what it is that I know. And hopefully someone out there, if I even just touch one person's mind, if one person has changed today because of this conversation, then I am living my values and my beliefs and my wants and my needs and everything that it is that I want in life. If we can pull ourselves back there, that's what it means to truly be centered. Understanding that it's not for anyone else, it's for us. And then living our best life in alignment with who we are. then we no longer have to worry about attachment and attunement and authenticity. It's about alignment.
Yeah, that was beautiful, and it's something that I understand. I get it. It's easier said than done. I get it. I've gone through it. I know it. But it's liberating to some extent, obviously, right? But to get to that point, you need to start finding, just like when people say, "Well, but I don't believe this or I don't believe that." For you to believe something, you need to feel it in your body. It doesn't matter how much you try to put up a thought into your mind. If your body doesn't feel, if your body
Exactly.
doesn't feel, it won't never be established as a belief.
Yeah, can we talk about this actually? So I
Yes.
wrote this book, Dance of Attachment, right?
Okay.
And inside of the book, I do this thing called a somatic affirmation practice. And this is like, if anyone's just like really interested in learning what Daniel and I are talking about more, I'd go way more into it in Dance of Attachment, and you can grab it on Amazon or wherever. Just go to danceofattachment.com. But inside of it, in chapter 5, we start talking about, actually, it's chapter 6, doesn't matter. We start talking about somatic affirmations and why normal affirmations don't work. You cannot say, I am enough over and over again. Because if your body doesn't feel it, it's exactly what you're saying. If your body doesn't feel it, you're actually going to start rewiring your brain in the wrong kind of way. Because here's how I used to work with affirmations. I'd be like, I am enough. And then my brain would start going, no, you're not. You didn't even shower today, Jen. You're disgusting. You're gross. Why do you even try? Right? That's that like internal dialogue that we have going on. Parts work is in the internal family systems is something else I'm trained in. If people know what that is, that's just that inner critic going on and on and on. But what we need to do is actually find evidence. So there's this triangular model that I have created, that I've designed, and that I'm doing research on. In fact, this spring, I am putting towards the board to do a complete research study on this 3-part triangular model of affirmations, somatic experiencing, right, by Peter Levine, all of that stuff, and then the Alpha-Theta brainwave state. Because there's only so much we can think, and there's only so much we can feel. If we're not doing it during this time frame in our body, I mean, during our day, when our minds are actually moldable, then it's just kind of like getting stuck on a block. I mean, you can like throw water balloons at a wall all day long, but if you throw a water balloon at an open window, it's going to go in. So anyways, I got so excited because I wanted to share that, and it's in my book, and I talk through all this stuff. It's what I teach in my academy, and that's what we do. We go through daily somatic affirmations. I basically, if a woman comes to me and she's upset by something, and we've been through my Dance of Attachment course inside of the academy, and I say to her, have you been doing your somatic affirmations? And she looks at me like, no. And I'm like, okay, then go back, start doing them again, and then come back and tell me. And 9 times out of 10, she comes back and she's like, it's completely changed. I don't even feel like I have to get defensive anymore. I walk into a room and I feel more confident. I don't snap at my husband anymore, Jen. Like, these are the actual real life stories that are coming through with it. And that's where it all starts.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you have. I think to me, what has helped me in the past is just not only gaining more understanding of how the body, the system, and the brain, subconscious mind, and all that works, but also being more curious, having a higher level of awareness. Okay, what is happening? Just like getting tap into it. Like as we talk about triggers, triggers are just information that tells you where you're not free, right? If somebody tells you that you are, if somebody can tell me, "Oh, you're fat," okay. If I don't believe it, then no. But if there is an ounce of an ounce of me that believes that, it's going to trigger me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that is
Exactly.
information that we have to use, and I, that's why I'm not invited at a party, because I tend to trigger people and see if I can, and then trying to explain. It's like they're good, but anyhow, it's all about understanding that if you want to change your belief, you have to do it somatically. If you want to heal, you have to do it as well in your body. There's nothing that you can, as much as you try to put it in your head, what I've come to realize is your body decides what kind of information or message your brain gets. Because if you are dysregulated and if you say I'm safe, your body is going to tell your brain, no, we're not safe at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the issues. But as somebody who had a disorganized attachment, what does rewiring look like in real time? The moment they feel triggered, either with anxious or avoidant.
Mm-hmm. So rewiring looks like having to do it at nighttime or in the morning. when our brains are in this alpha theta brainwave state. And what that means is, so basically, for the first 7 years of our life, our brains are in an alpha theta brainwave state. This is why in the first 7 years, like, we're most susceptible to attachments and, figuring things out and learning about ourselves. And we learn things. That's why languages, if we don't learn a language, usually before the age of like 7 or 10, we're screwed. Like, we're never going to really, some people can, because all people are different, but 9 times out of 10, we're not going to be able to learn it. You learn a language before the age of 7, all of a sudden your brain is unlocked in a way in which you can actually learn multiple languages even as you get older. It's fascinating. So this same thing can happen as you're laying down at night. So just as you're falling asleep at night, that first kind of half hour before you fall asleep, all of a sudden your brain kind of gets in this little mushy state. And if you are thinking about how enough you were for that day, in fact, we could do this for your listeners real quick, because it's a very fun exercise where you just kind of think about something today that made you smile, like that made you feel good, something you did, something that was accomplished. Like for me, it was like, oh, I got invited to come on this podcast with Daniel. He saw something in me that he really liked, and he invited me on, and now I get to talk to people, and that makes me feel good. But how do I know it makes me feel good? I'm going to check in with my body. Now, this is hard for some people. If this is not possible, I would take a step back with my clients. But let's say you kind of know what's going on. I want you to just relax in your body, see if anything pops up. Maybe your stomach gets a little bit excitable. For me, sometimes I feel like I have this almost bouncy ball in my stomach. Like it's going like ping, 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 like a little ping pong. Gets me all excited. Sometimes I confuse it with like fear and anxiety. But over time and being able to have more emotional intelligence, I see now, oh, it's like excitement. Sometimes I feel it in my chest. Sometimes I get a little bit flush in my cheeks. These are all somatic sensations. What I want you or your listener to do is find what I call your somatic signature. This thing that you get that feels good in your body. So I had a client one time, we were going through this, and when her boss would tell her, great job, Mary, on getting that report in, she's like, Jen, it almost makes it feel like there's warm honey kind of like flowing over my heart. Is that weird? And I was like, no, that's exactly what we're looking for. Find that sensation, give it a visual or a sound or a scent or a smell or whatever it is that you're doing. Find that signature somatic sense. So anyone listening, still keep finding it. And then as you fall asleep tonight, I want you to pull that up in your head, in your body, and say, yeah, this felt really good. I was able to help a friend this week, and that made my chest swell like there's a hot air balloon in it. And I'm going to fall asleep remembering that. And I'm going to remember how good I am. I am good. I am enough. I am loved. I am wanted. I am valued. Hear all of those beautiful, powerful statements in our brains as we're falling asleep, and then feeling it. We have to find the evidence, the experiences that we have. Can't just randomly say I'm enough. I need to know why you're enough, because you cooked dinner for your kids, because you got up, because you got your kids to school. I don't care how little it is, because you showered, girl. I'm proud of you. Even if you didn't shower, you got up. You made coffee. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you today, Daniel. You're doing this podcast. You're changing the world. You're having conversations that other people aren't having. You're doing amazing. Now, where do you feel that in your body? If you want to play along, you can tell me.
Yeah. It's so I mean, I've been working sort of hard in this one, because when you were giving the example of when their boss gave this woman a compliment, I used to be the kind of person for many, many, many years that it's not that I rejected compliments, it's just they bounce it out. And I have an interesting story about it. About a year and a half ago, I was early on the podcast, and I wanted to bring this person on, but I waited for a bit, right? Because as soon as I launched the podcast, I want this person on. I know I want to have a great conversation, but I don't feel confident yet because I'm trying to build this up, right? So I was 4 or 5 months in. I finally asked this person. This person said yes, and the only thing I wanted to do was I have two different ways I interview people. People like you, experts like a specific topic we're going to talk about, and other people that I feel that their life are fascinating, and I just want to learn the lessons and the ups and downs and get to know them better and showcase what they have accomplished. So this person was on the second part. This person wasn't an expert on anything really. But anyhow, so I was like, okay, I want this person to feel so. It's like when they leave the podcast, I want them to say, I'm so glad I said yes, because I had such a great time talking to Daniel. So I prepared like crazy. I did a lot of research. The good things like this person has a podcast, and I've been in other podcasts. So we go through the interview. We go through the whole thing. I was very anxious at the beginning, and afterwards, this person said like 3 or 4 times, like, "Oh, uh, that was awesome. You are an amazing interviewer." And oh, thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, appreciate it. Half an hour later, I'm just going to the gym, and I realize I get really sad. It's like I I got what I wanted. It's like the person to feel really appreciated, the person felt seen, heard, understood, and really, it was almost my gift to them for coming on the podcast, and yet I didn't feel it, and so
Mm-hmm.
that gave me two things. One, I realized like doesn't matter how much praise or validation you get from outside, if you never feel it, it's never gonna be enough. So I quickly said, okay, obviously it comes from within, but I had the experience per se, and the second is like, why is it that I don't allow myself to receive compliments? So I went down the rabbit hole and then just explore a lot of things. And yeah, I don't know whether that was positive or negative, because I could have used that as a fuel to just
Yeah.
overachieve, and never. But I was like, but once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So I saw it. I'm like, so I'm getting better at receiving. I'm getting better at receiving compliment, which is is taking me some time, but here we are.
So if I say to you, you're a very good interviewer, Daniel, I've had an amazing time on this podcast and I can't wait to share it with other people. How does that make you feel right now?
Good, but good. And I think just I'm already kind of like with emotions, like excited about it. And I think that I'm receiving it better. And it took me
Yeah.
some time to really accept. I don't understand why. Something probably happened in childhood. Who knows? But I'm the kind of person who loves giving people compliments, who loves seeing the potential in them and just showcase. Maybe hoping that one day I'll feel it in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe who knows? But yeah, it's something that I love that exercise, and I really appreciate
Yeah.
your kind words. And I think at the same time, when you were describing being in bed and thinking about what happened good in the day, is how people can quote unquote manifest, because you bring the emotion and the feeling, and then you attach to a new thought, and then you connect those two, and you don't have to. You already experience what you desire before it even gets to you, because you're attaching those a new thought
Yep.
with an experience you already had, which is great and
Yeah.
fascinating.
And and you bring up such a good point that I think is good as we're wrapping up today
Mm-hmm.
is that we all have a window of tolerance. So again, I'm not asking for someone to like open up the floodgates. Imagine if you had like a tree outside and it had been growing, but there wasn't much water. So the roots are quite kind of shallow. And all of a sudden you dredge it with a ton of water, it's going to fall over. So even though water is healthy and beneficial and we want to use it, we still have to do things in a certain amount of way. So my encouragement would be, let's say I'm just using you as my guinea pig right now because I can, is in the past, you couldn't receive maybe anything. You just had that wall up. Now, maybe you're receiving it a little bit, but you're still pushing it away slightly. But that's traction, right? Like that's you moving towards it. So the encouragement would be, what can you take away from a compliment of anything? Even if it's like, I want to push away. I say they're called yeah buts. Like, yes, she gave me a compliment. Yeah, but she probably gives them to everybody. Yes, she says she really likes my interview skills. Yeah, but she doesn't really know anything, right? Like, I don't know what that would be like for you. Everyone has their own yeah buts, but then we love it, those yeah buts. They're just our protective parts. We say, thank you for trying to keep me safe. And then we go back to that somatic signature. We say, without that protective part, if I really just let it in, like, for example, if you gave your friend a compliment and you said to him, you're so good at interviewing, how would he feel? And then this is like a little life hack. See if you can turn that around and see how you might feel. And then that's you now receiving that compliment. And that's just a little way sometimes we can bypass our somatic rejections that we want to have, like our pushaways. And we could say, let's say I tell my bestie, oh my God, girl, your hair looks so good today. You look so hot. Oh my God, this is so amazing. I want her to feel like she is on fucking top of the world. Like she is unstoppable. Like her entire body is like, even right now, I just got chills everywhere if I'm thinking about my best friend right now. And I'm thinking she's going to go out and rock it later on this weekend. And I'm like, she needs to know what a badass she is. And I'm like, oh, that's what maybe I would want to feel if somebody told me I'm looking hot and great and doing good. And so I'm like, you know what? Let me turn that around and let me feel like the badass I am. And that's just a tiny little hack for both yourself and your listeners to
Yeah.
kind of look at and see that's how we can start to feel it.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to start practicing that. And yes, just learn how to receive. Jen, been an absolute fascinating conversation. I have to bring you back. I have one last question because I feel that there's so many other things that we didn't have time to address. But as people tend to say, or at least I've heard in my circles, like love is like a test you didn't study for. All you can do is swing it and hope for the best. Given that statement, right? If somebody has spent the entire life repeating the same relationship dance, what's the first step to choosing a new rhythm without betraying themselves?
Mm. If you have, as I lovingly call, been doing dumb shit in your relationships for your entire life, to learn how to break the pattern is just to learn how to get kind of into that cycle and do something different. I don't care what it looks like, but maybe that just looks like trying a different coach, reading a different book, trying out something new, and then seeing like, okay, what can I do now? Because right, the definition of insanity is we just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You're going to find what works for you. Now, do I have an entire academy? Do I have a course? Do I have a program that I take women through? Yeah. Does that mean I'm the only one that knows what they're doing and I'm the only way you know how to heal? Absolutely not. Like, people have to find what works for them in their own lived experience, because my way of coaching won't necessarily work for everybody and someone else's way won't. So the very first step you can do is when you identify what your attachment style is, from there, you want to start looking at what all your patterns are and give yourself grace for that. So in my work, in my kind of formation that I have the dance attachment method that I teach people. So the first one is discovering your attachment stance, right? That's the D. The next one you're going to do is you're going to alleviate your attachment wounds. Those are those I am statements. I'm not enough. I'm a burden. I'm too much. I'm too intense. You're going to start alleviating those by doing that process we just did, which was the somatic affirmations. And then something we didn't even get into yet, but this is the whole next part of it, is we're going to have to nurture our attachment needs. Like, we didn't even touch on that. And that's how much healing can take, right? Research states that healing your attachment style takes anywhere from 1 to 4 years. So please
Wow.
understand that if anyone is out there claiming they can heal your attachment style in 90 days or whatever it is that I see out there all the time, it's just complete horseshit. This is not how this works. Those of us with disorganized attachment, it's going to take us a little bit longer. Sometimes I feel like I'm only just now getting out of the thick of it, and I've been healing for about 5 years. So that's that. We want to alleviate our attachment. We want to alleviate our attachment wounds, and we want to nurture our needs. These are all of our macro needs and micro needs that we have, which maybe I can come back on to talk about those another times. I don't want to overwhelm people. Then we want to communicate with confidence. This is one of my favorite things. This is usually what I go and I talk to in corporate worlds and talk about, which is my 3-step process of communicating our needs, our wants, our boundaries with the people we love through a process that's regulate, validate, collaborate. This is my 3-step process. It's all in the book if anyone wants to check it out later. And then eventually we want to embody secure attachment. This is how we break our patterns. We do these 5 things over and over. We fail. We try again. We mess up. We try again. We get in a new relationship. It blows up in our face and we try again. And we give ourselves grace and compassion because the world is difficult and being a human is hard, but it's also amazing and fun and exciting and unique and unlike anything else that's out there. And if we can get our mindset there of just seeing that everything in life is just an experiment, then we have the potential to actually live the life that we've always wanted.
I love that. That was perfect and great. And that's why I need to bring you back because even though you said, well, yeah, we failed and we tried again, we failed, we tried again. I know people that said, I'm done with even trying to date or trying finding love. They're so hurt. And I think that they don't even heal. They just wait for time to numb their pain and then just continue with their life. That is just like, it's kind of sad. It's sure we don't need a relationship, even though we are designed to mate, right? But that's a whole different story. That's why I have to bring you back because there's a lot more to explore here. But Jen, where can people find your website, work with you, buy your book, anything?
Perfect. Thank you for asking. So my coaching practice is called Speak Honest because something that's really important to me is the authenticity and the honesty and the communication that we have. So that's why years ago I just called it Speak Honest. So you can find me at speak-honest.com. Follow me on Instagram. That's really where like I live my best life. I'm usually trying out some sort of new reel, or I'm dancing on a screen, or I'm doing something really fun in there, or I'm teaching about something, or I'm taking bits of our workshops that we do every month inside of the Speak Honest Academy and I'm putting them up on Instagram. It's just at speak_honest. Honestly, if you just Google Speak Honest, it's a very unique and weird name. I usually just come up. But the one thing that I would love is for people to check out Dance of Attachment. You can grab it on Amazon or it's on Barnes and Nobles. I think it's cheaper on Amazon, so just go there. And you can grab yourself.
And you have free delivery as well.
Yes, right, exactly, right. And then I do have the TEDx talk that is of the same concept. If anyone just kind of wants to explore more about this work and they're like, I don't really have the money right now. My biggest thing, especially like in the way the world is right now, is trying to make anything as economical and usable as possible. So I have the podcast as well, the Speak Honest podcast, which I'd love to have you on sometime, Daniel. I think that would be really fun. I'm always looking for new guests and more like engaging guests. I can interview you this time. I think that'd be really cool to see your life story. So I have that as well as having the Speak Honest Academy. Now it is only for women. And so I do want to be mindful of that for your listeners. But if there is a woman out there and she is just like, oh my God, resonating with everything as we're talking about and wants to have that accountability. We just have a community of women. We meet twice a week. I'm in there coaching them. We're living our life together. And then I'm teaching them the dance method of healing their attachment style. And if they ever want to join us, then they can just come on at speakhonestacademy.com. And then I want to offer them a free month inside of the academy. So just use the code SECURE-START. For anyone from any of your listeners, the code SECURE-START, all one word, they'll get the first month free because you might as well just try it out. So why would you ever like try some? You don't know me. You don't trust me. You got to learn who I am first, and then you love me, or you don't. Which in case, fine. But I'm okay with that now.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll add all of those the links for the website, for the Instagram, for the book, for the TEDx talk. That's how I found you, which was like a fascinating talk and very well explained using the metaphor of dancing and how love is a freaking dance, right? And then we have to figure out each other's, steps and all that. But yeah, Jenn, it was such a pleasure having you on, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Daniel.